Hello, I'm Siobhan, and this is Studio Bonbon. Have you guys seen those color analysis videos? You know, the one where somebody flies to Korea or Australia, they get colored cloth draped over them, and they try to determine their best colors or what their season is? Well, I kind of became obsessed with these videos recently. I must have watched about 50. Now the thing is, I'm an artist. I have a degree in animation, and I've studied color theory quite extensively. So I couldn't help but wonder, what if I did my own color analysis? So that's what we're gonna be doing today. I'm gonna be showing you how I did my own color analysis at home for free using paint chips from the hardware store. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about color theory so that you can feel empowered to find your own best colors. And I'm going to walk you through my own color analysis and show you how and why I made the decisions that I did. I'm very excited about this. I've been wanting to do this for a while. If you follow my channel, you know I've been trying to create a sustainable wardrobe from scratch. I've been self-drafting and sewing my own clothes. And if you've seen any of my thrift flips, you know I spend a lot of time on these projects. So I think color analysis is going to give me the confidence that when I put all this time into these projects, they're going to look as best as they possibly can. So thanks for being here. I hope you enjoy. So the first step on this journey was to collect all my paint chips. Now look, Pantone sells these booklets of color swatches, but they are way out of my budget, and if you're not a professional artist, it probably is out of your budget too. I had a design professor once recommend making your own out of these free paint chips that you can get at the hardware store, and I am forever indebted to this advice. It's genius. Okay, so I went through and I grabbed one of every single color. This took me well over an hour, and I actually ended up leaving and coming back on another day to finish it. So I definitely don't recommend doing this, okay? Don't do this. I'm gonna show you in detail all the colors that you're gonna need for this color analysis, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about the experience because this was a little bit nerve-wracking. I felt like I was doing something wrong and that everyone was staring at me. But when I went to the checkout counter to buy a sparkling water, the lady there reassured me that it was perfectly fine, normal even. Okay, so I'm gonna go through and show you all of the colors that you are going to need to grab in order to do this color analysis. Now, if this doesn't make sense right now, don't worry. I'm gonna explain this in detail in just a second, but the idea is I'm leaving this here for reference. So you can watch the video, come back, pause it at this section, and I recommend taking a screen cap or a photo on your phone and then bringing that with you to the hardware store. When you go to select these colors yourself, make sure that you're paying close attention and being as specific as possible. As we'll see shortly, even slight differences in color can really change the way that they're reacting. So take your time here, really look at the colors closely so that you can get the best possible result. Now, I'm showing a lot of colors here for the seasonal palettes, but you probably don't need to gather all of these. I would recommend doing your undertone and intensity test first, determine your season, and then go grab whichever season you are and all the subgroups for that season. This will make more sense later, don't worry. Also, I filmed all of this in natural light, but I went back and color corrected the footage to make it as close as possible to real life. So what is color analysis? In case you haven't heard of it before, color analysis is a system used in the fashion and design world to help determine what colors look best with a person's natural features. The basic idea is that everyone can be categorized into one of 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter, based on their undertones and levels of intensity. Now, the history of color analysis is quite long and complex. There are many schools of thought on how to conduct a color analysis, and it's not an exact science by any means. So I will be doing this color analysis today based on a variety of different methods that I've seen online and picking and choosing which makes most sense to me. If you've seen it done differently, don't worry. There's no right or wrong way to do this. So when you go to do your own color analysis, feel free to pick and choose with what makes most sense to you. All of these methods, however, are based on foundational concepts of color theory, which has been developed and studied for hundreds of years and is considered to be a science. For my color analysis today, I'm going to be doing 3 different tests. First, we're going to be doing an undertone test to determine if I have a warm or a cool undertone. Then we're going to be doing an intensity test to see what my levels of intensity and contrast are. And then last, we're going to be doing a subgroup analysis. Within each of the seasons, spring, summer, autumn, and winter, there are 3 subgroups. It can get a little confusing, but I'll explain it in more detail when we get to that part of the analysis. But before we begin on this analysis, I want to go over some basic concepts about color theory, mainly warm versus cool colors and saturation or intensity. If you already have a pretty good knowledge of color theory, feel free to skip through this part of the video, but I'm going to assume that most people probably don't know how color theory actually works. So I'm going to run over the basics with you so that we can all be on the same page. I'm going to be referencing these concepts from this point on in the video, so it's important that you understand what I'm talking about. Let's start with the very basics. This is a color wheel. It's a representation of the full spectrum of colored light that our eyes can perceive, and it always appears in this order in the natural world. It's basically a rainbow that has been turned into a circle. Now, colors can be classified into 2 categories, warm and cool. You can see that the warm colors are on one side of the wheel and the cool colors are on the other. In a rainbow, the cool colors are on the bottom and the warm colors are at the top. You're probably thinking, all right, I already knew that. But here's the catch. Every color has a warm and a cool variant. For instance, let's look at red. There is a warm red and a cool red. It might not seem super obvious at first, but if you look really closely, the warm red has a little bit of orange in it, and the cool red has the slightest bit of purple in it. Cool blue leans toward the green side, and warm blue leans toward the purple side. There are warm and cool grays, and there are warm and cool browns. Even yellow has a warm and a cool version. Warm yellow has more orange in it, and cool yellow has more green in it. Now there is an exception to this rule. As far as color analysis is concerned, the color orange is always considered to be warm. Sometimes it's said that warm colors have yellow in them and cool colors have blue in them, but this is really not a helpful way to think about it. For instance, in the case of purple, if you add yellow to purple, you're not going to get a warm purple, you're gonna get gray. So how do we determine if a color is warm or cool? Like, why is it that the warm purple has red in it and the cool purple has blue in it, and not the opposite? Like, what's the logic there? In order to answer this, we have to go back to the color wheel. You see, colors are called cool or warm depending on their relationship to other colors on the spectrum. Let's use purple as an example here. Let's begin at neutral purple. If we begin to shift towards red, we start to get a warm purple. It's warm because it's moving closer to red. Red is the warmest color on the spectrum. It's at the very top of the rainbow. Now, if we go back to purple and we start to move in the opposite direction towards blue, we start to get a cool purple. This time it's cool because it's moving away from red, towards the cooler side of the spectrum. Eventually, this cool purple is going to turn into a warm blue, then a neutral blue, then a cool blue, and so on and so forth. You notice that when we move into blue, the cool and warm got flipped? That's because the terms warm and cool are always used in context to whatever color you're talking about. Blue isn't purple. It's its own color, and it has its own warm and cool versions. Alright, that's a wrap on warm and cool colors. Let's talk briefly about saturation and intensity. When colors are being described as deep or soft, this is what it's talking about. Now, in order to do a color analysis, all you have to know is that intensity describes how gray a color is. When we shift the intensity or saturation, the color doesn't change. It doesn't become any warmer or any cooler, it just gets more gray. However, when a color is less intense, it's not called grayer, it's called soft. Soft colors can be light or dark, it doesn't matter. All that matters is how intense they are, how gray they are. However, when we talk about intense colors, the darker colors are described as being deep, and the lighter colors are described as being bright. And that, my friends, is everything you need to know. Congratulations! You are now an expert in color theory. Now we can go ahead and move on to the fun part of this video, the color analysis. All right, so I've got all my color swatches here. I've got a ton of them. for the first part of the test, which is going to be a warm versus cool undertone test. Now, I took 4 of these swatches and taped them together. You probably don't have to do this if you're doing this at home. You'd probably be just fine just using one in the mirror, but for YouTube, it's gonna turn out a lot better, I think, if I have more surface area. So as you can see, I'm not wearing any makeup. When you do this test, you want to have your natural features as much as possible. Now, this is not a beauty channel. This is not a makeup channel, so go easy on me here. I don't have perfect skin or anything like that. That's not what this is about. So I'm not wearing any makeup. This is my natural hair color, and I'm wearing white. The idea here is that we're starting with a blank canvas because you don't want any other colors interfering and confusing your eye. I'm going to put my hair up and I'm going to cover my hair with a white t-shirt. Okay, so this is admittedly not my best look, but this isn't about fashion. This is about isolating my skin so that we can figure out what my undertone is. So the first part of this test, the undertone test, I'm going to be comparing several different kinds of warm and cool colors against my skin, and we're going to see what looks best. The important thing to remember here is that it doesn't matter how you feel about the colors. It's not about what your favorite colors are. It's about how those colors are interacting with your skin tone. Now, it's worth noting as well that undertone doesn't have to do with skin tone. You can have cool or warm undertones regardless of the color of your skin. What it's actually talking about is the membrane that is under our skin that covers our muscles. And that will either have a warm or a cool tone. So if you have a cool undertone and you get a tan, for instance, your undertone is not going to change. Your undertone doesn't change throughout your life. Your intensity might change, but your undertone is not going to change. All we're looking for is kind of the color that's coming out from underneath your skin. So keep that in mind when you're doing this test. I'm really excited about this. I have a vague suspicion about what my season is, but I'm not totally sure. So we're going to be figuring this out together. Okay, here we go. We're ready. I've gotten a little bit closer because I want you guys to be able to see a little bit better. So I'm going to be looking a little bit off camera because I'm going to be looking into my camera screen and using it as a mirror. So I hope that's not too annoying, but I need to be seeing the color change as well. So for the first part of this test, we're trying to determine if I have a warm or a cool undertone. If I have a warm undertone, then I'm either going to be a spring or an autumn. If I have a cool undertone, I'm either going to be a summer or a winter. So we need to narrow it down. So I'm going to start with some dark pinkish reds. We've got a cool reddish pink here. This is a fuchsia. And then a tomato red. This is warm based and this is cool based. Now, when I'm doing this test, I'm going to hold it up and then I'm going to switch the color. The important thing here is that you don't want to be looking at the color. You want to look at your skin. It doesn't matter how you feel about this color, if you like it or not. What we're focusing here is sort of the chemical reaction between the color and your skin tone. Okay, so here we go. Tomato red versus fuchsia. Woo! Okay, let's do that again. Tomato red, fuchsia. Okay, I think for this one, I'm going to keep moving through these. I think I already know personally which one is working better, but I'm going to see if you guys can guess. We're going to move through some lighter colors. These ones are just a little bit lighter than the ones that we just tried. So here we go. Warm versus cool. Warm versus cool. Wow. Okay, I feel like that's really obvious, but let's keep going. Let's move on to some even lighter ones. Okay, so warm versus cool. Do you guys think you know the answer? I think I do. All right, let's just do one last one. Warm versus cool. Okay, submit your votes. What do you guys think it is? I'm going to tell you what I think. I think I'm cool. I definitely think I'm cool. Let's look at why I think that. Okay, so if we go back to this orangish red and you look at my skin, I think overall there's kind of an orangeness that's showing up in my skin, but it's not really like a nice orange. It's kind of like a sickly orange, like a jaundiced color. And if you look at my lips, they look a bit gray here. Just watch what happens. Suddenly, my lips look pink, like they have some color in them. And my cheeks also, there looks like there's just a little bit of color. It's not dramatic, but it's there. It also kind of gets rid of the dark circles under my eyes. If you notice here, there's a bit of an appearance of kind of dark circles. Do you guys see that? Versus here, suddenly there's kind of a brightness. Now let's go to some lighter colors and see if we notice the difference there. So here, again, you can see my skin looks yellow, but it's not in a nice, like, tanned way. It's kind of in a sickly way. And it looks overall like my skin is kind of gray and colorless. But here, with the cool, once again, my lips start to look pinker. Even my nose, my sunburned nose, looks a little bit pinker. And those dark circles kind of go away. Do you see that? Okay, so I feel like that's pretty obvious. My vote so far is for cool. So let's move forward. So now we're going to be comparing some darker neutral colors. We're going to be doing a navy blue and a brown. Obviously, the blue is going to be cool and the brown is going to be warm. Let's see if the difference here is as obvious as it was with the pinks. Okay, so here's brown versus navy. Okay, yeah. I think that's pretty obvious. Let's do it again. Brown versus navy. So obviously, like, the navy is kind of matching my eyes a little bit, but it's also making my lips look pinker again. If you notice here, there's some like definition that's being lost in my chin. My jawline is kind of getting lost a little bit. Whereas with the navy, I feel like suddenly there's more definition in my jawline. So it's another vote for cool. Okay, so far so good. So next we're going to be comparing some whites. I have a cool white and an off-white, more of a warm white. Now the difference might not seem super obvious. I have two here that are maybe a little bit more dramatic in the difference. This one is quite creamy, and this one, it has got a slight blue tone to it. It's a very subtle difference here, but this is going to be important when you're putting together like a neutral wardrobe, or for instance, you're picking out a wedding dress, which isn't going to be happening for me anytime soon, but it's still good to know what white color looks best on you. So with whites, it can be a little bit difficult to distinguish the difference. It might not seem very obvious at first, but if you go a little bit darker, then suddenly you can see the difference a little bit more clearly. So we can see this one's kind of a brownish yellow, and this one's kind of a steely blue. But it's really not obvious when you're looking at the lightest shade until you go a little bit darker. So you see that? So when you're choosing your whites, that's what you're looking for. If you have a warm undertone, obviously the off-white is going to look better. If you have a cool undertone, then the vibrant kind of icy white is going to look better. So let's try this. We're going to start with our warm off-white here versus a cool white. Okay, let's do this again. Off-white versus cool white. I think, again, the cool white is just bringing a brightness overall to my face. It's very, very subtle, but I do think that there is a difference there. What do you guys think? I'm going to try the other two whites because the difference between these two is a little bit more dramatic. Okay, so off-white versus a blue-white. Yeah, I definitely think it's cool. All right, so we got another point for cool. What do you guys think so far? Do you agree? Do you agree with my analysis? Okay, so this next part of the test is going to be a metals test. We're going to determine if I look better with gold or with silver. Now, I don't have metallic swatches or anything like that, but this is a rough estimation. What I do have, though, is some gold and platinum jewelry. I have two identical ear cuffs. This is 24 karat gold. This is platinum. So I can compare the two metals as well. So I'm gonna put these on. Okay, so on this side, I've got my platinum cuff and a silver earring. And on this side, I have my 24 karat cuff and earring. This is also 24 karat. So we'll be able to see clearly which metal is reacting better. So here we go. Let's try this out. If you're trying this at home, you probably don't need to pull out some jewelry, but I had it on hand, so I figured I might as well use it. Okay, so let's start with gold versus silver. Wow. Wow. I feel like that's pretty dramatic. Okay, let's try it again. Gold. This is really not my best side, but gold versus silver. Wow. Okay, I'm definitely gonna say it's silver, which is such a shame because I love these earrings. I wear these earrings every single day. So this is kind of sad. Okay, so these were actually a gift from my ex-boyfriend. We've been broken up for a couple months now, and he just texted me the other day asking for them back. I mean, they weren't cheap, so I'll definitely give them back, but it's kind of nice to know that they don't look good on me anyway, so he can have them. That's pretty terrible, but come on, it's the truth. Okay, so that concludes the undertone test. I have determined that I have a cool undertone, that cool colors look best on me, and I'm pretty confident with that analysis. So this means that I am either a summer or a winter. I can't be spring or autumn because I don't have a warm undertone, so those colors aren't going to look any good on me. So, summer or winter, and in order to determine that, we're going to have to determine my intensity. Winter is generally more intense, where summer is a little bit more soft. The colors are generally lighter in summer. They're richer and darker in winter. So we're going to try to determine that. That's the next part of this test. So we can take off the head covering, let your hair down again, because your eye color and your hair color play into the intensity because they sort of can determine your contrast, and contrast plays into intensity. As you can see, my hair is pretty dark, and so I have kind of high contrast in my features. So we'll see how that all pans out. So when we look at intensity, we're going to be looking at everything holistically. That includes your eye color, your hair color, that it could even include a tan. Like for instance, if you go out and you get a fake tan or you have a vacation in Greece, your intensity might change a little bit, but overall your undertone is not going to change. It's never going to change. If you dye your hair, that could change your intensity. For instance, if I went platinum blonde, that might change my intensity a little bit. No plans to do that, by the way. To do this intensity test, I'm going to be comparing two colors. We have a very bright, cool green, or blue. Some people might call this blue, but in this case, we're doing a greens test. So this is a cool green, and then this is a bit of a softer, less saturated, less intense green. If I had a warm undertone, I would be doing these colors instead. But yeah, as you can see, these colors look terrible on me. So I'm definitely a cool. So we're going to be doing these two. With intensity, the way I understand it is that if your eye is drawn first to the color, then that color is too intense for you. Whereas if your eyes are drawn to your face first, then that's a nice balance of contrast. If your face is standing out too much from the background, then that color is not intense enough for you. So this is going to determine if I'm a winter or a summer. If you have warm undertones, you're going to be comparing these two greens. The brighter green will mean you're a spring, and the less saturated green will mean you're an autumn. So let's try this out. Let's see. I have no idea. So for this, I'm going to put it behind me like this. So here we have the more intense winter green. And then the summer green, which is a lot softer. This one's kind of tricky. I don't really know. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think personally for me, I much prefer this color. Like maybe it's a little bit too intense, but I feel like overall it just makes me look more colorful. It makes my eyes look more colorful, makes my hair look darker. Whereas this, I feel like kind of washes me out a little bit. Like I start to turn a little bit gray and I feel like I'm popping a little bit from the background. Whereas with this, I feel like it's kind of brightening my features a little bit. It's making the contrast in my features even more intense. I don't know. What do you think? Am I off here? So in between these two colors, I have one that's slightly more intense. So let's try that one. That doesn't look too bad. I think that looks okay versus this. I don't know. That one's not so bad. It's a bit more saturated. I really feel like I need that color. Otherwise, my features just kind of like fade away. Like once again, my lips are kind of looking a little bit more gray here. Versus here, they look more pink again. To be honest, I'm a little bit undetermined here. I'm gonna try it with another color. Okay, so I have some cool purple here. I didn't get 4 swatches of each of these, so I just put these together. This one is more soft and this one is more intense. If I was gonna be doing a summer palette, this would probably also be a little bit lighter, but I think for the intensity test, this is gonna work. So here we go. We have the intense purple versus the low saturated purple. I really don't think that that is intense enough for me personally. I think that that works a lot better. All right, guys, I'm going to say that the intense colors work better, which means that I am a winter. That is my season. So that's gonna be my guess for now. Let's see, maybe we'll adjust it as we go. But yeah, like if you look at these two versus these two, I really do think that the intense colors work better. Now, within every season, there are 3 further subcategories. So next, we're going to be comparing the subcategories and see if any one of those categories matches my features better. Now, I haven't assembled these palettes yet, so I'm gonna step aside and go through all my swatches and assemble these, and then we'll come back. I might be filming this on another day, so just bear with me. So I'm back. A lot happened. I actually ended up getting sick with the flu. I'm still recovering. My flowers died and then tulips went out of season. So I've got some new flowers here. And although I'm wearing the same outfit, it is a different day. I'm not trying to deceive you guys or anything. Just life got ahead of me. But we are back now to do the last part of this color analysis, which is the subgroup test. Now, you could totally stop here if you wanted to. In theory, once you've determined your season, all the colors in your season are going to look good on you. But when we get into the subgroup analysis, we're really trying to get nitpicky and find what your perfect colors are. What's cool about this is that once you determine your subgroup, you can see what other season you can steal colors from. Now, this can be a little confusing. I know it was confusing to me when I first learned, but I'll try my best to explain. So we have our 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. But within each season, there are 3 further subgroups. These subgroups are categorized based on different defining characteristics, such as their softness, their temperature, or how light or dark they are. These defining characteristics are shared with other seasons. In order to determine what subgroup you can steal from, we need to look at the wheel. If your subgroup is on the border of another season, then you should be able to steal from the one that is sitting right next to it. So for instance, if your subgroup is autumn warm, you should be able to steal from spring warm. Or for instance, if your subgroup is spring light, you should be able to steal from summer light. That's because both of these subgroups share those defining characteristics, in this case, the warmness or the lightness. Now, if your subgroup is in the middle of the pie, then you're going to be able to steal from the subgroup that is opposite on the other side of the color wheel. So for instance, if your subgroup is winter bright, you should be able to steal from spring bright. Or if your subgroup is summer soft, you should be able to steal from autumn soft. Now, if you analyze all the subgroups and you find that none of the colors are really standing out above the others and they all look pretty good on you, This means that you are a true season, which is pretty cool. That means that all the colors in your season are gonna look good on you. However, this also means that you don't share anything in common with any of the other seasons, so you can't steal from any other season subgroup. So you win some, you lose some. So for instance, if you were a true spring, then all the colors from the spring subgroup are gonna look great on you. That includes spring warm, spring light, and spring bright. However, you won't be able to steal from any of the other subgroups. So you're not gonna be able to steal from winter bright or summer light. You're gonna have to just stick with the spring colors. But that's a lot of colors to choose from, so it's not so bad. So just to recap, we have determined that I have a cool undertone and that the intense colors tend to look better on me, which means that my season is winter. So we're going to be looking at the 3 subgroups for winter, which are winter bright, winter deep, and winter cool. We're also going to be comparing the subgroups that are opposite to winter to see if we can narrow it down even further. So we'll also be looking at summer cool, autumn deep, and spring bright. All right, so here we go. We're all ready to do the subgroup analysis. The first subgroup that I'm going to be looking at is winter bright. These colors all have a very cool undertone, but they're very bright and intense. So let's start off with the first color, which is this cyan blue. First reactions here, I think that it's very bright. I think that it might be just a tad too intense, but I think the level of coolness is working really well. So overall, it's not bad. I think it might just be a little bit too intense for me though. Let's look at the next color here, which is this very bright turquoise green. Now, I love this color. This is probably my favorite color, not just for my wardrobe, but just in general. I love this color so much. So I have to say that I am having a very strong reaction to this. I just love the color so much. It might be just a tinge too intense for me though, but it's hard to tell. Let's move on and see what else we've got here. Next, we have this citrus yellow. Now, it's sort of an acidic yellow. It is cooler. It's a very bright, intense yellow, but it does have a bit of a cool undertone. It's ever so slightly a bit green. Now, if you have a cool undertone, you really have to be careful with yellows. They really don't work on most people. This is about as yellow as you're gonna wanna get if you have a cool undertone. Just as an example, let me show you the yellow from the autumn palette. So this is winter bright, and this is the yellow from the autumn palette. Now, not a bad color, but it really doesn't work with my undertone. It's way too warm. And most yellows are pretty warm and intense. But this winter yellow is definitely cooler, so it can work on some people. But I think for me, this color is a little bit too light. It's quite bright, but I think it's really the lightness that really isn't working for me. I think I need a bit of a deeper color, a darker color that's perhaps more intense. And then the last color here is this magenta pink, which I think is a beautiful color. Once again, it's quite bright, and I'm not quite sure yet if the brightness is working for me. We're gonna have to compare some other colors to see. I do love this color though. Let's move on to the next subgroup. We don't have to make our minds up yet. Really, the best way to do this test is to compare and contrast colors from different subgroups, because that's where you're really gonna see the differences. You might not see it at first, and that's okay. All right, so the next subgroup is winter deep. These colors are all very deep, which means they're quite dark, but they're also very intense. So let's look at the first color here. It's this violet. I love this color. I think that the cool purple aspect of it is working really well. However, I think it's maybe just a tad too dark for me. I don't think it's matching my level of contrast. I think that it's maybe a bit too dark. Next, we have a black. Now, there's a common misconception that black is the ultimate neutral color and that it looks great on everyone, but this is not true. Black is a very cool color. color, and it really doesn't look good on everyone. For me, I've always thought that black is just a little bit too severe for me. I think it's a little bit too intense. I think what's happening here is my hair color is kind of clashing with it a little bit. There's this kind of black and brown mixture that's not really working. I think it's a bit too dark for me. Now, this is a great way to determine your subgroup if you are a winter, because we're going to be later comparing this to navy. So we'll see how that goes. But for now, I'm gonna say that black isn't really working for me. I think it's just too dark. And our last color here is this blue. Now this blue is quite dark and intense. It's on the cool side, and I really love it. I think it's working really well. Let's see how this compares to the winter bright blue. So, winter deep, winter bright. I kind of think the darker, less intense color is working a little bit better here. It's just a little bit more subtle, and I think it works with my levels of contrast a bit better. The winter bright, I think, is too bright. It's too intense. It's kind of stealing the show. So between winter bright and winter deep, I think I prefer the winter deep. So that's it for winter deep. Let's move on to the last subgroup here. So far between the winter deep and the winter bright, I kind of think that the winter deep colors are working better. And I think that's because they're darker and they're a little bit less intense. I think these colors overall are a little bit too light for me, but we'll find out later when we go to compare the neighboring subgroups to these two. Let's move on to the last subgroup here in the winter palette, which is winter cool. So first we have this cobalt blue. It's quite an intense blue, and it's actually quite dark. If we compare it to the winter bright, winter cool, winter bright, I think this color is actually a little bit too dark, truthfully, but I like the coolness a lot. It's really almost more of a cool purple than it is a cool blue. It's kind of a warmer blue. It's definitely better than the winter bright. I think that's too intense, too bright. Not bad. I don't love it, but it's not bad. Next, we have this navy blue. Now they say that this is a really good test to determine your subgroup for winter, especially, is to compare navy and black. So let's see between the two colors which one looks better. So here we go. We've got the winter cool navy and black. Yeah. Once again, I think the black is just a little bit too severe, and it kind of clashes with my hair color. Whereas the navy, I think, looks wonderful. I actually think this is one of my favorite colors for my wardrobe. If you watch my channel, I just made a video about making a pair of pants in this color, and I dyed them to get this color. I really love it. Once again, much better than black. Okay, so we got a point then for winter cool. Let's see what else we got here. Next we have this raspberry red. This red might be a little bit off actually to the actual palette. I think the actual red for this palette is a bit darker, but overall I think it's the right undertone. It's quite cool, and I love this color. I think this is wonderful. Let's compare this to the magenta from the winter bright palette. Winter cool, winter bright. I mean, I do love this color. I think what I'm responding to is that this color is actually a bit cooler, but I still think that it's maybe a little bit too bright for me. Whereas the winter cool red is a little bit more complementary to my contrast levels. Let's compare it to the red from the winter deep palette. So winter cool, winter deep. I think that's lovely actually. But once again, I think it's because it's cooler. I think this level of contrast works better as far as the intensity goes. I don't know, it's hard to say. All right, and the last color in the winter cool palette is this pine green, which I love. I love this color. I think it's just the right level of intensity for me. And I think what I'm really responding to is the coolness of it. It's almost green. Well, it is a green, but yeah, I think it's just the right level of intensity. It's just dark enough. I think it contrasts really well with my features. I think overall of all the colors that I've tried, this might be my favorite actually, which I was not expecting. I thought at first glance that this color was too soft for me, but I actually really love it. Let's compare this to the winter bright turquoise. So winter cool, winter bright. I still love this color, but I do think it's just a little bit too intense for me. I think this one works a lot better with my levels of intensity. So winter cool, winter bright. I like that one a lot more. Let's compare it just for fun to the blue from the winter deep. So winter cool, winter deep. Interesting. Okay, so winter cool. I think that this level of lightness works a lot better than this. I think this is too dark. I think it's kind of clashing with my hair almost. Whereas this one is a nicer balance, I think, of contrast. Okay, so I think I prefer the winter cool. Interesting. So far, I'm feeling pretty good about winter cool compared to winter deep. The next step is going to be to analyze the neighboring subgroups for all of these. And how about we start with winter bright and spring bright? Because I have a suspicion that these are the colors that are working least well for me. So if we can eliminate spring bright and winter bright, then that's gonna help us narrow it down even further. So let's go ahead and analyze spring bright. Okay, so here we go. The first color in the spring bright palette is this lime green. Oh my gosh. Okay, I really don't think this color is working at all. I actually do have some kind of chartreuse lime green colors in my wardrobe, and they don't work very well, unfortunately, because I do love this color on its own, but I think for me, it's just way too warm and way too intense. The winter bright works a lot better, but honestly, that's about as intense as I want to go. That does not work at all, in my opinion. So next we have a purple. This is quite a nice purple, actually. It is a bit on the warm side, neutral to warm, and it is quite bright, but I like it because purple is a cool color. Let's look at a purple from the winter palette. So this one is a little bit more soft and it's also darker, and I think that's working a little bit better than this. Overall, though, I don't hate this color. I think this color is okay. So let's move on. Next in the spring bright is this lemon yellow. Okay, this is terrible. Once again, not a terrible color. You guys got really upset when I called a color terrible in my thrifting for natural fibers video. It's not a terrible color. I'm sure this looks great on some people, but on me, it's really not working. This is way too warm. Let's compare with the winter yellow. This is not too bad. It's not terrible. It's still a bit light, but this is way too warm, way too bright and intense. So I'm gonna say that's a no. Next, we have this fire engine red. It's very intense. And I think once again, this color is just way too warm for me and too intense. All of these colors so far are really bright and intense. I don't think that they're working at all with my level of contrast. Next, we have this blue. This blue is quite similar to the blue from the winter bright palette. It's a little bit warmer though. And overall, I don't think it's bad, but it's still very intense, very bright. Let's compare it to the blue from the winter cool palette. Spring bright, winter cool. I think this is better. It's a little bit more subtle. It's still really intense, but I think it works better because it's a bit of a darker color. I think that works better. And last for the spring bright palette is this bright orange. Yeah, this is just not my color palette at all. It's way too warm. Orange is a really good test for warm undertones because if you don't have warm undertones, it really doesn't work. It's quite hard to pull off. And in this case, I'm gonna say it's definitely not my color. So there we have it for spring bright. Overall, I think these colors are way too intense for me. I'm gonna go ahead and say that we can eliminate the winter bright palette because these just don't work. They're not really harmonizing. So we'll go ahead and eliminate these two. Okay, so next I'm going to look at autumn deep, which is the neighboring subgroup to winter deep. So let's see how this goes. Of course, autumn is going to be warmer, but they're still really dark and intense, but they have a warmer undertone. First color in autumn deep is brown. Yeah. I don't think brown works at all on me. It's way too warm. This color is also quite dark on me, and I don't think it works. Let's compare the navy from the winter cool. Autumn deep, winter cool. much better, much better. I really need that cool undertone. Next, we have this eggplant purple. Now this purple is quite warm and it's deep and dark again, and I don't think it's awful. I quite like purple in my wardrobe. Let's compare this though to the winter deep. I much prefer the cool purple, but once again, I think both of these colors are just a little bit too dark for me. If we compare this with the winter cool, so autumn deep, winter cool, this one is a bit brighter and lighter as well, and I think it works a little bit better. This color is lovely. I think it's a beautiful color. I wouldn't mind stealing it, but I think overall it's just too warm and too dark. Next, in the autumn deep palette is this red. This is a very intense sort of cherry red, and I think this is far too warm for me. Let's compare this to the winter cool red. So autumn deep, winter cool. That is much better. I really need, once again, that cool undertone. I think that's way too warm for me. I almost said too red for me, but it's too warm. And last, we have this quite light blue. I think this color is too intense. It's too bright. It's quite similar actually to the wow, it's very similar to the winter bright, which again, I think was too bright for me. And I think it's kind of missing that cool undertone as well. Autumn deep, winter cool. I think this is much better. Okay, so that's it for autumn deep. Not too bad. I'm not really confident yet to eliminate winter deep. I do like these colors overall, and not all of these work, but some of them work. So I'm not quite sure yet. So let's go ahead and compare the last subgroup, which is going to be summer cool, which is the neighboring subgroup to winter cool. All right, so first up we have this green. It's sort of a soft sagey green, and I love it. I really love this color. This is a bit softer than the pine green that we have in the winter cool palette. Let's look at the two. Summer cool, winter cool. I think that level of intensity is working a little bit better. I think the darkness is working better with my level of contrast. But I think the cool undertones in this green and sort of the softness of it is actually really nice. I really love this. All right, let's move on to the next one. That is going to be this pink, sort of a rosy pink. And honestly, it's not bad. This is quite a cool pink. If we compare, this is a spring pink, which is kind of orangey. This is quite nice. I think that it might be a little bit light, but overall, I actually really love it. All right, let's move on to the next one. I think I'm a little bit biased towards the summer palette, actually. Like, I just love these colors so much. I think they're so beautiful. They are definitely a bit too light for me, I think, but gosh, I just love them. There's my turquoise again, my favorite color. So I think I'm a bit biased towards liking the summer palette, but let's keep moving through these and see how they work out. So next we have this mauve. I love this color. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I just love it. The only one that I would compare it to maybe is this cobalt. That's the thing about the winter cool palette, is that they're all pretty dark in the winter palette. Of course, there are more colors in the winter palette that I could be using too, like this purple. But yeah, I think that this summer cool purple is quite nice. Overall, I think the winter purple is a bit better for my level of intensity, but I think that's beautiful, especially for like a spring or a summer color. I love it. Next, we have this blue. It's a bit of a warm blue, actually, and it's quite intense. Not quite as intense as the winter bright, so I think that works a lot better. If we compare this to the cobalt from the winter cool palette, so summer cool, winter cool, I think that this works a little bit better with my level of intensity and my contrast, but this is not bad. Next, we have this red. This is the summer red. This is as close as I could get to the summer red. I actually think that the summer red is a bit cooler, just a tiny bit more cool, but this is a pretty close approximation. I think that this color is a bit too bright and too warm for me, if I'm being honest. Let's compare this to the winter cool. So summer cool, winter cool. That's much better. Once again, I think I need those cool undertones, but I think maybe in small amounts that could work. That could be interesting. undertone. Overall, that's probably the one that's working the least well from the Summer Cool palette. And then last, we have this soft navy, which I think is beautiful. I love this color. Let's compare this to Winter Cool. So Summer Cool, Winter Cool. So this color is a bit more intense and deep, but this one's not bad. I think it works. I think this one is a bit better just because of the level of intensity, but it's not bad. I think that could work. Okay, so Summer Cool. I love the Summer Cool palette. I think that's beautiful. And I think overall Winter Cool was working really well. It's definitely working better than Autumn Deep. In fact, let's compare Autumn Deep to Summer Cool real quick and see if there's a difference there. Okay, this is the navy from Summer Cool versus Autumn Deep. I think that's pretty clear. This is way too warm. And it's not quite as intense as the Winter Cool, but it's a lot better than the brown. This is way too warm. So we got a point for Summer Cool there. Let's try the other colors. Autumn Deep, Summer Cool. This one's interesting because I think Autumn Deep is too dark and I think Summer Cool is too light. But overall, I think the undertone is a little bit better with the Summer Cool. I still think this one is too warm. I do love purple. It's hard to say which one is better there. Let's compare the reds and see if we can see a difference. So this is Summer Cool and this is Autumn Deep. Okay, so I think actually you can see a difference there. I'm seeing a difference. Summer Cool, once again, I think this is the color that is working the least well in that palette because it's quite warm, but that is way too warm. I think the Summer Cool works a lot better. It's subtle, but that works a lot better. And if we compare that to Winter Cool, so Summer Cool, Winter Cool. Winter Cool definitely wins. All right, and let's look at the blues. So Summer Cool, Autumn Deep. This is interesting. This is interesting because this color is actually more cool than this one. This one is technically warmer. So you could think about this as like a cool purple, but it really isn't. It's really a blue. So it's interesting that the cooler color is not really working as well in this context. I prefer this color. I think it's partially because the Autumn Deep color is just too bright and intense. Like we said before, it's quite close to the Winter Bright, and I think that level of intensity is too bright for me. The Summer Cool is just a little bit softer, and I think that works better. Okay, so I'm gonna say, in my humble opinion, between Autumn Deep and Summer Cool, I think Summer Cool is winning. And you know what that means? That means my season is winter, my subgroup is Winter Cool, which means that I can steal from Summer Cool. I feel pretty good about that analysis. Wow, okay. This is really interesting. This is gonna change everything because, to be honest, for how much I love color, I really didn't know how to pick colors that suited me. I had a vague inkling that blue looked really good on me, but beyond that, I didn't really have much of an idea. I really enjoyed really getting into this and breaking it down and comparing and contrasting. You know, it's like once you have a system to follow, I feel like it's a lot easier for me to organize my thoughts around things personally. So this has been immensely helpful. And I hope you find this helpful. I hope that this has been enough information for you to feel confident to go out there and try to find your own season and subgroups. It'd be really interesting to see how this works for other people. After I finished up this analysis, I took all my best colors and put them together into a little booklet. I did this by first making a little label and then hole punching all of the swatches and putting it onto a really simple keyring. Then just for fun, I took all the little circles from the hole punch and glued them on into a little cover. And this way I have a little portable booklet to take with me when I go shopping or when I sit down to design some new clothes. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining me along on this journey. I made a little color palette booklet for myself, just for fun. I think I'll probably take this with me to the thrift store when I go thrifting so I can make sure that I'm selecting fabrics that are within my palette. I'm not sure if I love this polka dot pattern on the front, but I don't know, it's kind of fun. So yeah, I hope that was helpful and that this helps you guys find your own best colors. If anybody tries this at home, I would love to see your results. Feel free to find me on Instagram. You can DM me there. I would love to see how this works for other people. I really think this is going to fundamentally change how I approach creating this wardrobe. I'm already starting to look at colors differently in the thrift store and definitely gravitating towards cooler colors. I think I learned a lot from this experience, and I'm really excited to bring it forward with me into my next projects. If you made it this far and you liked this video, consider giving it a like. What that's gonna do is it's gonna tell the YouTube algorithm to recommend this video to people with similar taste as you. That's gonna help my channel grow, which means that I'll have more time to spend on making videos like this one. Right now, I am working at a deli, serving lunch meats and hacking up chickens. I would love to be spending less time there and more time here making videos like this. You can help me get there, and it's completely free. I really hope that you enjoyed that. I know I had a lot of fun making this video. We'll be back next week with more thrift flips. See ya, bye.